Welcome to a second helping of great games under 5 gigabytes. I'm here to recommend to you another 12, technically more, you'll understand soon, solid titles that you can pick up right now that won't take your storage space hostage. There are games, old and new, that offer an extremely satisfying experience without even hitting double digits in gigabyte size. And that's not the only great thing about them. Typically, these smaller games are either indie projects or AA or AAA games from over a decade ago, probably 2, and they almost always cost much less than the newer blockbuster titles. Meaning, you're not only lightening the load on your storage, you're almost certainly lightening the load on your wallet too. It's a double whammy of value, so what's not to like? As the cherry on top, this is also the perfect opportunity to try games you probably never heard of or gave an honest shake before. It's never a bad thing to expand your horizons and further develop your tastes. The primary platform of this video is Steam, but don't fret. Most, if not all, the games in this video are very easy to run, even on older or lower-end computers, and most are available on console too. I've personally played every game in this video and enjoy them all, so even if they somehow were not under 5 gigabytes, I would still recommend them. And even if you decide to not get any of the games here, then hopefully this can at least get you started on what types of games to look for if you want smaller and possibly inexpensive games to play. Now, in the previous video, I started things off with a classic first-person shooter, so why not do that again with another all-timer from Golden Era id Software? That's right, I'm talking about Quake. Many games in the recent boomer shooter boom have Doom as their major inspiration, but I would argue that Quake is possibly even more influential for this retro shooter renaissance. And why wouldn't it be? Quake still holds up. It's fast, it's fun, and it's intense. Demolish your enemies with satisfying gunplay while listening to a banging soundtrack by the one and only Trent Reznor. And thankfully, id Software has gone out of their way to help preserve its legacy back in 2021, when they released a free enhancement update for the game, improving its lighting, models, and maps, throwing in 2 expansion packs, and offering cross-play multiplayer, as well as local split-screen multiplayer for deathmatch and co-op, for those of you who want to play with friends in the same room. What a revolutionary concept, right? As an added bonus, the update even includes a brand new episode created by developers at Machine Games. An iconic early 3D shooter has only gotten better over time. Once installed, Quake takes up only a hair above 1.1 gigabytes, and its full, non-discounted price is $10. Next up is another classic, but not the kind you're probably thinking of. Games that involve opening and running your own store are all the rage nowadays, but they often forget to pay respects to the OG. I'm talking about Recettear, an item shop's tale. First released in 2007, this is a store management and dungeon crawling game where you clear out dungeons to collect items, then put those items up for sale to make some sweet, sweet cash. This is the pioneer of what people currently call cozy games. Many games since Recettear's release have tried to copy it, but honestly none of them come close to being so fulfilling. Both the combat involved in dungeon crawling and the management aspects of running the store are simple and rewarding, and the game itself is loaded with charm. If you've enjoyed more recent cozy management games, then give this one a try. It's an honest, clean, straightforward game that does not weigh you down with a ton of complex mechanics, but it's very gratifying all the same. Now before you go out and get it, however, I need to give you 2 warnings. First, this game is old, 2007 like I said, and it has not gotten any major updates ever, meaning the game does not natively run at high-definition resolutions, and as far as I know, it does not function on Steam Deck. You can run the game at HD resolutions like I'm doing in the video by looking up a fan-made patch called the Fancy Screen Patch. If you don't mind playing in sub-HD resolutions though, then you can just install and play like normal. Second, you should also know that Recettear HD, an enhanced re-release, was actually announced earlier this year, but only for Japan as of right now. I don't know if it'll be available in English, and if it is, I don't think it'll be a free upgrade for owners of the original version. So keep these things in mind if you decide to buy the game now. If you go through with it, Recettear only takes up just over 600 megabytes, and its full, non-discounted price is $20. Our third game is another classic, this time of the contract-killing variety. Hitman Blood Money was not only the best Hitman game when it released back in 2006, but even today, after the release of the fantastic World of Assassination trilogy, it is still arguably the best game in the series. This was the entry that truly opened up the franchise and maximized its potential as a true, honest-to-goodness stealth assassination sandbox. You have a ton of ways of disposing of your targets, and going guns blazing is extremely punishing. Missions are very thoughtfully designed, and your arsenal of weapons and tools boasts a solid variety. This is a game that rewards exploration and creativity, and if you've only played the World of Assassination trilogy but none of the older Hitman games, then you should absolutely try this one out. Since it is an older game, you might need to do some tweaking to get it to function perfectly on your PC, but I personally had no problems with just downloading and installing it. However, if you want HD resolutions, you'll need to open up the game's INI file to input them manually. If you decide to buy Hitman Blood Money, it's going to take up about 4.16 gigabytes of storage space, and its full, non-discounted price is $10, but it is regularly on sale. In fact, it was 90% off not too long before this video was published, meaning this stealth classic can go down to only $1, a damn good deal if I've ever seen one. We've done 3 classics in a row, so let's momentarily bring things forward a bit to a more recent day. Everyone knows about the action roguelike explosion that started with Vampire Survivors. In the last video, I recommended another one of the best in the genre right now, Halls of Torment. So I want to keep that going with Brotato, where you control one of many different types of potato characters and wield up to 6 weapons at a time to destroy nasty aliens. There's an insane number of characters, weapons, and items at your disposal, which means an even crazier amount of combinations to experiment with. Brotato also has some key changes to the action roguelike formula that might make it a better fit for you instead of the others I mentioned, such as a smaller arena that isn't the size of a country, a wave-based format instead of a timed survival format, runs are a bit faster to start, and while you can get powerful, it is much harder to get so powerful that the game plays itself. It's a well-paced and equally addictive game compared to its contemporaries. Brotato also has an art style that's heavily reminiscent of old Flash games. That might not mean much to Zoomers, but to a millennial like me, it's pretty nostalgic. If you decide to buy Brotato, it'll take up just under 200 megabytes of space, and its full, non-discounted price is $5. Speaking of roguelikes, I have another one here, but it's not another game like Vampire Survivors. Instead, this one has Samurai. Samurai Bringer is a roguelike action game that features and combines many cool ideas, merging Dynasty Warriors-esque 1 versus 100 battles, and a create and attack system that allows you to assign any action of your choosing to any button, including jump and dash. There's also no shortage of challenge to be found here because you can run into enemies who can totally destroy you, but eventually, as you expand your moveset and collect more attacks and strengthen your character, you can become a force to be reckoned with. The game also has a very charming art style using blocky 3D character designs that add an extra dimension to character sprites that you might see on a Game Boy Advance or something. And it has the 8-bit sound effects and music to match. Samurai Bringer is a game made with a lot of love and intent, with its fascinating mechanics, deep customization options, and unique visuals. The full, non-discounted price of the game is $10, and it takes up only 309 megabytes of space. Now, for anyone interested in real-time strategy games, don't think I've forgotten about you, because we're heading back to classics with Command & Conquer, Red Alert 2, and Yuri's Revenge. Red Alert 2, and by extension, its expansion Yuri's Revenge, is widely considered among the Command & Conquer fanbase to be the best game in the series, featuring a solid story, an easily legible art style, kick-ass music, AI opponents that were pretty smart for its time, fun and interesting units, and just a generally satisfying game feel. Some people might not play strategy games for fear of them being slow and boring, but Red Alert 2 is anything but. It's surprisingly fast-paced and doesn't demand a tedious amount of micromanagement like certain other competitive RTSs. It's beginner-friendly, really fun, and gameplay-wise has barely aged a day. Because it's an old game, you should also know that it doesn't natively support high-definition or widescreen resolutions. If you want those, you'll need to go into the game's INI file and set them manually. If you don't really care about that though, you can just install the game and start it like normal. And good news for you Steam Deck owners, because it is playable on your portable device. If you decide to get Red Alert 2 and Yuri's Revenge, it'll take up only 1.83 gigabytes of space. But you should know the game is currently not available for purchase on its own, and is instead only available as part of the Command & Conquer Ultimate Collection bundle, which includes literally all Command & Conquer titles. This is actually not a bad thing, because most Command & Conquer games are good, and I would recommend them anyway, except Command & Conquer 4, which you are forced to own if you buy that bundle, unfortunately. The full, non-discounted price for the collection is $20, but as of writing this video, the bundle has a discount built into it, so you can have all 17 games and expansions for anywhere between $6 to $10, depending on your timing. Now let's head into the world of action RPGs with an entry in one of the longest running franchises in gaming, Ys Origin. Yes, that is how it's pronounced, Ys. Taking place 700 years before the events of the first game, Ys Origin is a somewhat mythological prequel that features a kick-ass soundtrack and snappy, smooth, fast-paced combat that's as challenging as it is satisfying. But if you're not that confident in your skills and want to ease yourself in, that's fine too, because the game has 5 different difficulty levels. There's also time attack and boss rush modes to enjoy, as well as an arena mode that throws hordes of enemies at you. And because it's a prequel that takes place so long ago, it's very welcoming to new players who are not familiar with the usual protagonist of Adol Kristen. It's a great entry point into a world that has a ton more games you can try if you decide you enjoy it, and as someone who has played several games in the series, I would recommend most, if not all of them, anyway. It's one of the most consistent franchises in gaming today, and it's honestly a shame it doesn't get more respect for it. If you decide to get Ys Origin, it'll take up 2.42 gigabytes of space, and its full, non-discounted price is $20. For our next game, we're heading into fighting territory with another classic. Just like the fighting game I recommended in the last video, this is another gem from SNK, and it's well timed too, because it's finally getting a long-awaited sequel very, very soon. I'm talking about Garou, Mark of the Wolves. This was, and to some extent still is, considered not only one of SNK's best fighting games, but one of the best fighting games, period. Comparisons to Street Fighter III Third Strike were common back in the day because they both released in the same year, and among the most hardcore enthusiasts of the genre, it was pretty neck and neck. Garou features all the strengths of SNK in their prime: beautiful sprites and detailed backgrounds, great music, thoughtful and engaging game mechanics, and a bright and colorful cast of characters, new and old. And to make things even better, the most recent release of Mark of the Wolves also received rollback netcode for a smooth online experience. Now granted, it is still a niche game, so you might not find that much activity without joining online communities, but if you have any love for the fighting game genre, do yourself a favor and pick up this piece of history. You can even use it as a primer for its long-awaited sequel, Fatal Fury: City of the Wolves, releasing in April with rollback and cross-platform play, so you'll have a bigger pool of other players to fight. If you buy Garou, it'll take up a measly 231 megabytes, and its full, non-discounted price is $10. Let's take a step back into roguelike territory once again. This time, we're doing a first-person shooter called Post Void. This is an eye-searingly psychedelic, fast-paced, lucid dream of a game where you hold down forward and blow enemies away to keep the idle in your hand full to stay alive. Its trippy visuals and abrasive music and sound effects perfectly complement its neck-breaking speed, and the game is short and sweet, taking only about 10 or so minutes to do a complete run, if you manage to pull it off. This is the type of game that you can start up and play under pretty much any circumstance, even when you're kind of upset and need to clear your head, because this game also rewards pure muscle memory. If you get good enough at it, you'll be clearing runs strictly on reflex. Post Void is pure, bite-sized chaos. With that said though, Post Void offers an accessibility option to minimize flashing effects happening on screen because of the game's crazy visuals, but even then it might still be a lot if you have photosensitive epilepsy, so do keep that in mind if you want to give the game a try. If you decide to buy Post Void, it'll take up only 257 megabytes, and its full, non-discounted price is only $3. Continuing with the action, we have another indie title, but not a shooter. On this channel, I've mentioned a few times before how much I enjoy character action games, which is a very specific type of hack and slash that focuses on deeper and more precise combat. And there was an early independent character action game released back in 2014 called Mitsurugi Kamui Hikae, the first and only game made by three-man team Zenith Blue. When I say this game is indie, I really mean it. There's only 2 characters and a handful of enemy types, but it has a very simple, wave-based structure that gradually increases the difficulty as you progress. Controls are responsive and combat is fluid, but that fluidity has to be earned first, because the game practically forces you to learn how to play properly. If you really want to have fun, you need to earn that fun, which some people are understandably not really prepared for. The main character, Misa, has a decently big moveset, and you are expected to practice how to use each move with some degree of efficiency if you really want combat to look as slick and spectacular as it can be. You also use skill points to learn more attacks and increase your attributes. The game is pretty short, and enemy types are admittedly repetitive, and the story is bordering on non-existent, but if you enjoy games like Devil May Cry, Metal Gear Rising, Ninja Gaiden, or even Onechanbara, consider giving this one a shot. If you buy Mitsurugi Kamui Hikae, it takes up just over 100 megabytes, and its full, non-discounted price is $10. Our next game brings us into shoot-'em-up territory, specifically twin-stick shooters. You may already be familiar with Finnish game studio Housemarque, the team behind Returnal, which I continue to champion as the best Sony first-party title of the PS5 generation. And if you don't already know, Housemarque has a long history of vibrant and addictive shoot-'em-ups, and one of them is Nex Machina. The game is pretty straightforward. You control a character in a twin-stick format and top-down perspective, blowing up enemies room by room while also saving humans and picking up power-ups and upgrades to increase your killing efficiency, in turn racking up more points. But of course, it's no walk in the park. The game absolutely knows how to keep you on your toes with the right amount of difficulty, especially when you have to juggle multiple objectives and mechanics during all the relentless mayhem. There's no online co-op, but there is local co-op, so the game manages to stay true to its arcadey feel. In a way, the game is sort of a spiritual successor, or at least gameplay cousin, of the 2013 title Resogun, which was also a very fun game and arguably the best launch title for the PlayStation 4. In fact, Nex Machina boasts a more robust version of the voxel technology used in Resogun, resulting in a very kinetic and physics-heavy environment where particles are moving around everywhere. It's fast-paced, easy to get into, and visually powerful. If you get Nex Machina, it'll take up just under 900 megabytes of space, and its full, non-discounted price is $20. My last game for this video is actually two different versions of one game. Let me elaborate. The final game is FlatOut 2, or FlatOut Ultimate Carnage Collector's Edition, which is an updated version of FlatOut 2. If you've seen these titles in passing, you probably didn't know they were the same game, but the reason I bring both of them up is because even though Ultimate Carnage is an updated version, there's still enough differences that you might prefer the original release. Now granted, they both have the same core content for the most part, the same gnarly, kick-ass, destructive racing, and the hilarious minigames and ragdoll physics. No matter which version you get, you are going to receive a fun game at the end of the day. They're both good versions that are worth playing, but the key differences that I want to bring up are possibly worth noting. The regular FlatOut 2 has more mod support, a soundtrack that's more reminiscent of music popular at the time the game originally came out, such as Rob Zombie, Yellowcard, and Papa Roach, and some people might prefer the appearance of some of the cars here. Ultimate Carnage, on the other hand, has 2 more cars, 4 more AI opponents per race, and an entirely new game mode and cleaner graphics. That's not all though. Another huge difference between the two games is physics. Ultimate Carnage changed the game's physics to be a bit more light and arcadey, so a decent amount of people do prefer the overall heavier feel of the normal FlatOut 2. A good chunk of you might just go for Ultimate Carnage by default, which is perfectly fine. But for the rest, if this sounds like a tough choice, I agree. That's why I personally opted to just get both. I know that probably sounds silly, but the first 3 games in the series, including both versions of FlatOut 2, are usually bundled together on Steam, and on sale fairly often. Unfortunately, you will also be forced to own FlatOut 3, which is not particularly liked. If you decide to get both though, regular FlatOut 2 will take up only 2.35 gigabytes of space, and Ultimate Carnage will take up 4.7 gigabytes. The full, non-discounted prices are $10 for the former and $20 for the latter. But keep an eye out for a bundle sale and you can have both plus FlatOut 1 for around $8. And that's all the games featured in this video. And now that the list is done, it's time for some math. What would the damage be to your wallet and to your storage space if you were to buy all 12, or technically 13, of these games? Well, let's tally it all together and find out. This time it's going to be a little tricky because of Red Alert 2, which is only purchasable through a bundle and 2 versions of FlatOut 2. Now the grand total price for all 13 games with no discount whatsoever, including the entire Command & Conquer bundle and the individual prices for both FlatOut 2 and Ultimate Carnage, is $168. Sales for these games can knock anywhere from 15 to 90% off these prices, but if we meet in the middle and say you can get them all at 50% off, then we're looking at $84. Now, in regard to storage space, however, if you do buy all 13 of these games and install them, you're looking at a grand total of just over 19 gigabytes of space being occupied. 13 solid titles for 19 gigabytes. I've seen single-player DLC for newer games that are bigger than that. And you can still shave that down a bit more if you decide to stick to only one version of FlatOut 2. Save money, save space, and have fun. This concludes the second round of great games under 5 gigabytes. If you have your own recommendations, leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you around.